I have seen ever larger groups congregating in the valleys. They are becoming an army.
What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about everything that's happened with Forsaken, from the side quest storyline and even cliffhanger that Treyarch has beautifully closed off the Cold War lifecycle with. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and also as a reminder, you can save 10% off any order using code DYNAMITE over at gameradvantage.com. Their link is, of course, down below in the description. They recently restocked on the Horizon Blue Lens glasses. Be sure to check all that out in case you guys are interested. But also as an FYI, the legend Cal Jitsu went ahead and helped me put together and organize the story elements of this video. His link is going to be down below, but also don't forget to take advantage of the timestamps in case you guys do need them. But first and foremost, we have the Zombie Zapper Mastercraft bundle, which ended up dropping with the launch of Forsaken a couple of days ago. I would have thought they would have saved this bundle for maybe later in Season 6 before the release of Vanguard, but in the bundle itself, it does cost 2,400 COD points, and it comes with the Blast-O-Matic blueprint for the Gallo itself, as well as the Blast-Automatic blueprint for the C58, both of which come with tracer rounds. The Gallo comes with blue tracer rounds, while the C58 comes with green tracer rounds. We also have the Raygun charm, the Zap Tracker accessory, a vehicle skin, vehicle horn, and an animated emblem with a calling card, along with a sticker. Now, both these blueprints also come with toxic dismemberment effects and toxic elemental damage just for zombies. A very fitting bundle for hardcore zombies fans out there. I'm sure you guys probably already copped this one. I usually end up having a real fan favorite zombie map each year that Treyarch is in charge, and right now, I'm really feeling like Forsaken is that map for me. I love the map layout, the gameplay, the rewarding and easy to replicate side quests, as well as the straightforward main Easter egg, which we're going to talk about later in the video. This is really the first DLC 4 with a strong combination, in my opinion, of good map design, a really replayable main quest, a strong boss fight, and a fulfilling ending in terms of the cutscene itself. Previous DLC 4s may have had a few of the things I listed, but maybe not all of them. Richtofen might just be an exception, but that's probably controversial. Respectfully disagree down below in the comments. I think what Treyarch accomplished with setting up a new story and taking the gameplay in a new direction is quite impressive, considering the tough circumstances they had with COVID and juggling multiple projects at once over the past year. I generally don't think about red light, green light from campaign when playing this map. Maybe it's because that campaign mission was likely only played for a total of 30 minutes by anyone who even beat the campaign in the first place. I just love the atmosphere that Forsaken has to offer. Now, this video isn't quite a guide, but simply an overview of all the side quests this map does offer in case you guys missed a few of them. And first off, the quote-unquote free Raygun Easter egg. So this one is fantastic, but there is a catch, like with many other Easter eggs we've gotten in the past. So you want to take Aether's Shroud and go right through this door, and you'll be greeted by a Ronald Raygun. Now, he'll be dancing next to a couple of boxes of pizza, and here's how the quest works, right? You want to take each one of these pizzas to 4 different locations over in any town, and you can go to those 4 locations in any order that you choose. You are timed on this, so make sure you know the map layout before going ahead and starting this Easter egg. So every time you deliver a pizza and go back to Ronald Raygun, you can then request a payout. So they'll give you anything random from a power-up to salvage, points, and there is a very slight chance he'll give you a Raygun. So usually, as many people out there have pointed out in their videos, after delivering all 4 pizzas successfully, he might just give you a Raygun before you're able to kill him if you so please. But the problem is, right, the chances of getting a Raygun seem to be quite low for a lot of people. However, a lot of content creators managed to get a Raygun on one of their first attempts doing this quest, so you're probably going to see a lot of videos, people's sub boxes titled "Free Raygun Easter Egg Guaranteed" here in Forsaken. However, it's not really guaranteed. I should also point out that if you do fail any one of these pizza deliveries, there is no restarting in that match. You have to just end the game and try again in your next game. So that's how this Easter egg works. It is a chance to get a free Raygun if luck is in your favor, but as you guys will see, I have footage of beating this a couple of times, and I still have not gotten a Raygun from doing this one, but it's worth a shot. Doesn't take much effort and is a really fun Easter egg nonetheless, especially if you're a fan of Spider-Man 2. But before we continue on with any more side Easter eggs in Forsaken, let's go ahead and take the sponsor of today's video. Now tonight's video is sponsored by G.round. You can check out using the link down below in the description. G.round is an exclusive free community-driven platform where games are picked every week to be supported by you guys in the community. They're dedicated to helping game developers gather feedback, improve, and polish their games to provide the ultimate experience. Now with the link in the description, you can create an account and head to the testing tab. There's a large library of games you can choose from, and when you see one that you like, click play and you'll be asked to install the G.round launcher. Download it and extract a file with WinRAR to begin the install. Some games won't launch via the G.round launcher, and they'll simply give you a Steam key to go ahead and input. From the launcher, you'll be able to download and install the game. After you've played it for a decent amount of time, you're then able to review it by filling out a quick survey about your gameplay experience. Reviews can be made in any language that you prefer, but because you're helping out developers in playtesting and improving their games, they want to reward you with the G-Points currency. As you playtest, survey, and participate in events, you'll be able to accumulate more points. You can then use those points to purchase gaming gear and other items such as headphones, controllers, and even more. It's honestly the perfect system. Play brand new games, help them out, and you'll be rewarded in return. Now you can also record and share gameplay clips on the platform to highlight your best moments in the games you've tried. So as a reminder, you can check out G.round for free using the link in this video's description. Thank you to G.round for sponsoring tonight's video. We next up have the arcade machines. So as we all know, in the campaign mission Red Light Green Light, the arcade machines were very iconic and still would feel their presence to this day in Cold War, since you could play all the classic games at the main menu of the game itself. But of course, Treyarch fully utilizes arcade machines for DLC 4. We first up have the Eisendrache arcade machine. So this one definitely threw me off by surprise, right? We knew about this one's existence from campaign, but we were surprised to see that it's accessible here in Zombies. Now to get arcade tokens, which are required to play some of these games, they'll either drop randomly from Zombies or you can buy them from 10,000 points in the arcade room itself. So when you actually activate the Eisendrache machine, it'll take you to the rooftop here of the facility, in which there is a Dragon World event that we already have from Outbreak, but is playable right here in round based. So as usual, right, get enough zombie kills right in front of the dragon itself, charge them up, and depending on how many kills you get with this dragon will determine how good the loot is that you get at the end of the quest itself. Open up the loot box and you can get anything from a wonder weapon, a perk, high rarity items, the works. So it's a very straightforward side quest, but people have been pointing out as of right now, time of posting this, that you could do this more than a single time in a match, but on your second attempt of this quest, it'll probably be bugged and it just won't give you anything upon finishing the quest itself. So I'm sure that'll get fixed in an upcoming patch without a doubt. But it's also worth pointing out you could get a free arcade token just by knifing the token machine itself located here in the arcade. You can do this at any point throughout your match, but only once. Take advantage of that while you guys can. We of course have the Nacht Untoten arcade machine, which really threw people off by surprise when this first got solved. So what it does is spawns you into a classic level of Nacht Untoten. The classic version from World at War looks nothing like the version we had in Die Machina at all, and you are timed in here. So the goal is to get as many kills as you possibly can to earn different levels of loot. So there's essentially 3 different waves of loot that you can actually earn, and yeah, you have a limited amount of ammo in this 1911. Go for headshots. That's the only way to get enough kills that you need to progress through these bonus waves. If you die in this little arcade game, it won't count towards your actual deaths, and you won't lose anything when you actually get spawned back to the main map. So you have to be as quick as you possibly can. It might take some practice, right? Don't rush this. It's not about, you know, knifing them or using all your ammo right away. It's all about those precise headshots. So practice your aim as best as you possibly can. So upon finishing the first couple of kills, it'll spawn some loot. Boom. Rinse and repeat. Use the ammo that you have left and get some headshots. And then upon your second loot box opening, it'll give you a DMR. Now, again, there's limited ammo in the DMR, but headshots are pretty easy to get with this one, but you'll probably already be about under a minute by the time you get to the DMR. That's kind of the average time for most people, and if you manage to get enough kills with this, then boom, you get the final loot chest reward featuring high rarity salvage, which we first saw introduced over in Outbreak. Now, I do want to point out that I do love how Outbreak kind of prepared us for some of the Easter eggs we have in Untoten and even in Forsaken, whether it's some of the world events being brought over, whether it's some of the mini bosses, some of the quests, some of the strategies and steps. I do feel like Outbreak truly got us prepared for some of the things that we're getting in round base, and that to me is fine. Now you can also do this as many times as you want in a single match, and I guess this does finally explain what the sign means in front of the cinema, which does say Nacht Untoten is returning. I don't think we're going to get a classic Nacht Untoten survival map or a Nacht Onslaught experience, although I'd be fine with that. Maybe they'll do that in Vanguard at some point as a bonus. I doubt definitely think it's a strong possibility we get a World War II era Project Endstation or a World War II era Nacht and Untoten that feels faithful to Vanguard. That could be a bonus map in that game, without a doubt. But right now in Cold War, I think we've had enough Nacht already, at least for Cold War alone. And this is almost the 10th iteration of Nacht and Untoten, which is insane to think about, right? Black Ops 4 was the only game not to have a new version of this map. Now, I do want to bring up the Sharpshooter Easter eggs, which are also here in Forsaken. I don't really find a point in doing them, but essentially here's how this works, right? In Modern Toten, there was a Sharpshooter Easter egg allowing you to get a free Aether tool, and it was a bit difficult, don't get me wrong, but it will give you an Aether tool allowing you to upgrade any weapon that you want to the next level up. But here on Forsaken, there isn't a Sharpshooter Easter egg granting with an Aether tool. Instead, there are a number of different Sharpshooter Easter eggs which only allow you to upgrade the weapon that you're holding, but that's limited to a pistol, a sniper, or an SMG. So as you'll see footage of, there is a very specific spot you have to go to for the Sniper Sharpshooter challenge, and another one for the pistol, and then the SMG. So there's 3 specific locations you have to go to for those 3 specific weapons, and it'll then upgrade the weapon that you're holding to the next level up. And it could be any one of these snipers or the SMGs or the pistols, but those happen to be 3 open classes that I probably won't be using at all when playing zombies, so that's why I'm like, wait a second, is this kind of a pointless side quest or is it not? I'm not really a big fan of it, but this is probably the most common side quest that everybody is likely going to skip. Now we also have the Enduro RCXD arcade machine, which I wanted to bring up real quickly, and this one is kind of difficult. You could get a decent amount of points while in this, and you can again go back to this as many times as you want in a single match. I would say if you get free arcade tokens from zombie drops, that's when you would want to go into a game like this. I wouldn't waste an arcade token that you bought on this game specifically, but yeah, the RCXD could be a bit tough to control. I know people out there on keyboard and mouse have been saying that it's not easy, and I believe them. Even on controller, I'm not the best with this one. Take some practice, but might as well take advantage of some free cash if you guys do care about that. Now we also have a mystery arcade machine located in the upstairs area of the bar. What you want to do is use PhD slider to get a slider kill next to the machine. It'll then absorb the essence of that one zombie kill, and the machine will turn on. You can then insert a arcade token into the machine itself, which then puts you into a very, very fun RCXD race. Now, the faster you finish all the laps, the better rarity reward you'll get. Now, if you want to race against some of your teammates, they'll also have to stand next to you to enter the race. And this one is definitely a lot of fun, as you guys will see. It does get tough. Follow the arrows on the ground, not that difficult. You'll have zombies and a bunch of heavy bosses kind of guiding you in the right direction, dancing, clapping their hands. It's hilarious. I definitely think Forsaken, in my opinion, has some of the strongest side Easter eggs out of all of Cold War Zombies, if not the best, right? The most rewarding quest, the most fun, easy to replicate. I think Modern Toten was off to a good start. Wasn't a huge fan of the side quests we had in either the Machina or Firebase, but the past 2 maps, I think, have really knocked it out of the park with creativity. But I do find it great that there are things in this game that you might not find a purpose for depending on what your playstyle is, but once you begin to experiment with other modes, other playstyles, other objectives, that's when some things will come into play, like toxic growth, death perception, mule kick, whatever the case is. But then look at PhD, for example. Not only is it cool for bigger regions than Outbreak, but then being able to do certain side quests in Forsaken because of PhD, to me, is just great all the way around. Gives you incentive to try different things, an incentive to go ahead and get all the crystal upgrades and upgrade everything to the max. Now we then have the free Chrysalax Wonder Weapon quest. Very, very easy to replicate, and I think it's great when a free Wonder Weapon quest is actually fun to go for. It again inspires people out there to not just go for the mystery box or trials to get the new Wonder Weapon, but just a short quest that is again fun to do. So after activating the first step of the main Easter egg, which is the Zykov cutscene, a crystal will come crashing down into the donut shop after a couple of rounds pass by. It's about, I think, 2 to 3 rounds max, not too bad at all. You then want to kill all the special zombies that spawn by that crystal. Then anywhere around the map, take a flamethrower and burn a special zombie, whether it's a Tormentor or a Tempest. That special zombie will then drop a specific part. And again, flamethrowers are easy to get, don't cost very much at all over at a crafting table. So you then want to get an Abomination to shock any one of the purple crystals spawned around the map. That'll give you the final part that you need. Take all of that to the particle accelerator room and then hold X right over here to insert the parts that you got, and then get a few melee kills next to this area until it lets you pick up the Chrysalax Wonder Weapon. Super easy to replicate, not that difficult, especially even on higher rounds. pop Ring of Fire if you have to and get some of the melee kills that you need, or pull a melee weapon from the mystery box, or maybe you guys are on insta-kill and you can do this very quickly. But there you have it, a very easy to replicate wonder weapon quest here in Forsaken, and it's honestly one of my favorite wonder weapons of all time. Yes, you can get this from either the mystery box or by doing trials. It's common, that's just my experience at least, but it can arguably put against some of the great wonder weapons like the Thunder Gun, the Apothican Servant. I do get it, right? The Apothican Servant had infinite damage essentially, right? And it was good forever as long as you had alchemical or were getting max ammos. But with the Chrysalax here, you could practically have unlimited ammo for the rest of the game. And that's kind of how the Cerberus was over in Untoten, which to me was very unique. That wonder weapon was just out of this world, much different from what we were accustomed to, and knocked out of the park again here with the Chrysalax. So you can use the axe to get a weapon for the SMG, and then vice versa, use the SMG part to then gain a little bit of ammo for the axe. And the ammo for the axe just allows you to throw it long distance, kind of like the Hell's Retriever, which is awesome, but you need ammo to be able to do that. So I love that vice versa system, and you can access either one of the other abilities of the wonder weapon by using up on the D-pad. But people have pointed out the Chrysalax isn't very good after like the late 40s. If you're a high round player, I'm not a high round player, so it doesn't really bother me. I'm usually done with the main quest or exfilling by the late 30s. That's just my experience, but I get it, right? For high rounds, you're probably still gonna want to run a Raygun or some other overpowered weapon that doesn't have too much of a drop off in some of the higher waves. Now you're also able to PhD slide onto a specific grate here on the ground, which I ended up doing by mistake here, as you'll see in the gameplay. You can then grab the rabbit that spawns in and place it right behind Bubby to activate a lockdown. So of course we had to have a Bubby Burger Town Easter egg here in Forsaken. I would have been shocked if he wasn't included in any way in some type of Easter egg. I know not for the main quest, but at least for a side Easter egg, right? A bit of a throwback to Exo Zombies Burger Town that we got many years ago. But this lockdown does get harder over time. Is quite okay for a co-op game as well. Have a certain player watch a certain spawn point for the zombies, and make sure Bubby does not get attacked because he'll get damaged fairly quickly, which will end up failing the lockdown altogether. So once finished, it'll give you a loot chest and the brand new song for this map known as Samantha's Ballad. So Kevin Sherwood hasn't made a new song in a while for a zombies map, but hopefully he does one for Call of Duty Vanguard, right? The music on this map still sounds great regardless, and Samantha's Ballad is definitely a nice remix of a classic tune that we've had for many previous Treyarch Zombies iterations. Now keep in mind there could be more side Easter eggs that we haven't discovered here in Forsaken, which I'll definitely be covering in a future video, but as of right now, since COD partners have already posted an all side Easter eggs video for this map, we can just assume they have sources or some inside scoop that all side Easter eggs may in fact have been discovered for DLC 4. But the main quest, on the other hand, is rather short compared to other Easter eggs we've gotten in the past, but to me that's okay. We have an Ascension type step where all players need to hold square on a certain button, and you then grab a part, have to shoot some moving orbs in 3 different locations, which is easiest with the SMG part of the Chrysalax. You then need the axe to break those crystals, granting you access to 3 different shards. You have to throw the shard at an abomination, the new mini boss on this map, and kill them when they have a red tail. Super easy. Repeat that process 3 different times with the 3 shards you collect from 3 locations that you guys will see on screen, and thankfully it spawns abominations in every time you need one after breaking that crystal and grabbing that shard. So there's really not much RNG involved here. You then need to have an abomination slam into a certain corner of the boardroom, pick that part up, and you're nearly done already with the main quest. You now want to very easily go into the arcade room and activate Tesla Storm or use Deadwire, the AAT, right in front of this Grand Prix machine. It'll then allow you to buy an RCXD for 2,000 points. I do recommend waiting until zombies are out of this room, maybe a nuke just went off, or maybe you're transitioning between rounds to where zombies aren't near the RCXD because it'll instantly explode if it touches a zombie. You want to then drive this RCXD to the video store and go right behind the counter, right near the vent, and go all the way to the back right of this room, detonate it, and it'll drop the final part you need to build your new toy. Just craft a new buildable at the workbench here on Main Street and escort this new toy through a new accessible part of the map, which was seen at campaign, but isn't actually featured as a playable area in regular round-based gameplay aside from this Easter egg. Along the way, your new toy will then lose power, so you have to collect some crystals that are easy to spot, and you have to bring it to the device, recharge it, and then it'll keep moving you to the very end of this room, leading you into the Forsaken boss fight. Now, I really want to point out that this boss fight is epic, plain and simple. When we all pictured the Revelations boss fight before the map released, we all thought we would see Monty floating, fighting the Shadow Man, or when we pictured DLC 4 for Black Ops 4, we assumed we'd be getting a great war, some massive battle taking place, all this energy everywhere, massive bosses, the staves, we do get something like what we wanted back then here in Forsaken to an extent. So Samantha is here floating as we charge her up with zombie kills so that she can power these giant lasers that can hurt the Forsaken, the giant boss himself. The giant boss, the Forsaken, will have armor that you can destroy from time to time, but it's no big deal with the wonder weapon, a death machine, whatever the case is. Make sure you are prepared for this boss fight because it's not that difficult, but it's not a piece of cake. You have to put in a little bit of work to make sure you take this guy out. Now, I do love how we get a glimpse of what the Forsaken is truly capable of in terms of his ability to truly manipulate people. That's been a huge plot point over the past year with the storyline. He gives us a glimpse of our beloved crew, but slaughtered as a consequence for freeing him, which is pretty disturbing. I hope that's not what's going to happen to our crew in the future of this Dark Aether story. His attacks also aren't too frustrating, and I think there's plenty of space for all players in the match here. It's not like a sudden death attack like in Eisendrache, where if you make one mistake and you're not paying attention, he'll just sudden death everybody in the match itself. Doesn't work that way here, but he can do quite a bit of damage to you if you're standing still, so keep moving around. Don't get caught in the crosshairs of some of his attacks. What is weird though is when you finally defeat him, you start taking damage out of nowhere and could even down, but nonetheless, the ending cutscene will still play, and death really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But looks like we have trapped the Forsaken himself in what looks like a new version of Sophia from Black Ops 3. Could be a reused asset, or could be a callback to the fact that Sophia did play a pretty large role at the ending of Black Ops 3. But with Samantha going back into the Dark Aether at the end of this Easter egg, the future of her story arc is definitely in question, as we're about to talk about. With all the gameplay covered, I just want to say again, bravo to Treyarch for pulling this off. I seriously love this map. It's such a great Easter egg. I think the flow from side quest to side quest, from map area to map area, is better than ever. I think they really pulled off what it means to reuse a campaign level and truly change it to be something truly extraordinary just for zombies. But when it comes to the story, I'll of course have more videos on the way breaking down other secrets and plot points that get discovered along the way. We do have more zombies intel still coming in Season 6, but for now, here's where we're at. We got a somewhat predictable reveal that the Forsaken and Zykov were one in the same. Some people out there have been a bit uncertain as to the true nature of Zykov or the Forsaken, especially after he convinced Valentina that he was Vogel, but for clarification, right, the Forsaken genuinely is, or at least was, Casimir Zykov himself, as we got a glimpse of in the beginning of the D Machina intro cinematic cutscene. Treyarch's been setting this up for quite some time, and after Zykov was thrown into the Dark Aether, it's likely that most of the events we see in Zykov's journal entries really did happen. People out there are assuming that because of this plot twist, maybe the intel hasn't really mattered all this time. Was it all made up? Was it Forsaken manipulating all of us into believing him? But I do believe the journal entries do still matter, with the occasional made-up entry to try and sell us on this plot twist. He probably did create the Wonder Fizz, still fixed the Pack-a-Punch, still built his fort, and made friends with Cinder the Hellhound. But this twist that the days that these journal entries are given to us are Dark Aether days, not Earth days. For example, by the time he experienced one Dark Aether day on his end, less than 3 hours actually passed on our end here on Earth. If this is true, it means we really only got a glimpse at the start of Zykov's incredibly long journey. Through his pure will to survive, he began consuming the living creatures of the Dark Aether that he hunted along the way. As he did this, he began gaining a place on this hierarchy, which obviously led to him then killing the old beings that were in charge in the Dark Aether itself. It's unclear how he somehow gathered all the willpower to defeat such powerful beings that were there. We have yet to see who those powerful beings were, but all in all, he then became the sole ruler of the Dark Aether at the end of the day. He then began manipulating Valentina under the guise of Vogel for many years. Vogel was of course Valentina's father, hoping he would be able to re-enter the world when she reactivated the cyclotron, but when the portal wasn't strong enough, he instead had her begin the plans in Berlin. However, once Kravchenko found out and changed the target of Operation Inversia from Berlin to elsewhere, the Forsaken began to manipulate Peck with the narrative of, and I quote, "I can help you kill the Forsaken," all the while making sure to foster Peck's fragile ego. Of course, Zykov was manipulating the strike team as well, but most of all, out of sheer admiration of their bravery and proficiency at dealing with the creatures of the Dark Aether, he admired them surprisingly, leading him to giving them perks, power-ups, etc., and more than anything else, it gave them a fighting chance and made things all the more interesting. Now, with all that out the way, where do we stand with the post-Cold War storyline, right? Let's look at who's actually free from the current plot that we got at the end of Forsaken. So it looks like people that are running free include Peck, Jaeger, Gorev, Ravenov, and then the man himself, Eddie, right? The man, the myth, the legend that we all predicted would be the director, and I'm glad that Craig Houston saved that big reveal for the very ending of this beautifully put together cutscene, right? No voice lines were even needed to close off this current arc of Chapter 1, you can call it, for the Aether storyline. The music choice they went with this cutscene, sure as DMCA claimed, but nonetheless, very powerful for what Craig Houston was going for. Now, we all got a glimpse of the fact that Eddie has a wife and kid. Are they still alive? Is this a revenge type of plot? Was his son accidentally killed by Weaver and Sam? That is worth its own separate video, because that's a massive topic that I didn't even go in a lot of depth about, but what I will say about that right now is that Treyarch showed us that picture for a reason. They want us to know that he is a family man, at least in this Dark Aether storyline now. He is a changed man from the Richtofen we knew from the old Aether storyline. This is a much different iteration of the character that we're not going to know much about for at least a couple of years' time. Now, we do know for a fact that those people I mentioned are still very much alive. What we can't be sure on, though, is whether or not Peck went and met up with the director or used the opportunity of everyone assuming he was dead to his advantage. That's probably a plot that will get explored much on in future intel or Treyarch's next game. It's possible that in the next game, we might get Ravenov, Peck, Gorev, Jaeger as our TACCOM, right? The people that talk to us, unlike our original crew, which was Weaver, Strauss, Carver, and Gray. Now, a really interesting point is that the area in the ocean Peck points towards, right here in this post-credit scene of Forsaken, is actually where the inversion missiles landed at the ending of the first Outbreak main Easter egg. So, Omega said those missiles were unsalvageable, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything of worth over in that location. Perhaps an ideal place to perform experiments or to hold prisoners. Peck has something up his sleeve, which obviously proves to us Outbreak was important, right? The actual events of that Outbreak Easter egg will still be important in Treyarch's next game. The ramifications of those missiles has yet to be understood. But unfortunately, the director this entire time was playing 4D chess. He himself was the mole. The people out there falsely believed was Carver, and rightfully so, right? There's a lot of intel in this game that makes us believe Carver is the mole. He was acting very suspicious about a number of things, but ended up being a coincidence at the end of the day, and it was the director himself that was feeding information to Omega to pit both groups against each other, all for his personal gain. The lads that are in prison include Weaver, Strauss, Carver, Gray, the good old Raptor 1 unfortunately, and of course Strike Team, the people that we choose to play as. Doesn't really matter who those characters are, right? I know it gets confusing when you see Samantha or Mason or just a random character that wouldn't really make sense in the zombie story, but just know the operators themselves aren't canon, but we are the Strike Team. We just choose how we look, of course, if that makes any sense. Now, all these people have been in prison, unfortunately, on the orders of the director, but we don't know where the Requiem heads of the department actually are. How did they allow this to happen, right? But we do know for a fact that Strike Team, possibly Raptor 1, and the people I mentioned have been taken to a facility called Black Site 13, likely owned by the mysterious unknown company. Now, there's clearly something going on between Eddie, maybe the Illuminati, or an outside presence, another group that is helping Eddie with this plan, but for reasons unknown, which we're hopefully going to learn sooner than later. But in terms of the fates of characters that we don't know much about, first off, Samantha, right, locked back into the Dark Aether, but will likely survive, considering the Forsaken is no longer there. It's being said, at least through intel and even steps on the main Easter egg, that Dark Aether should go back to the way it was before the Forsaken arrived, which is essentially that everyone's kind of doing their own thing in there. There is a hierarchy of beings, of course, in charge, but with Sam and her powers now, I think she'll be just fine, whereas the Forsaken was kind of just holding everything hostage for his personal gain and made the Dark Aether worse than it already was. So I'm sure Sam will be fine, but I'm curious if the extra amount of time she spends in there now, for the next couple of years at least, is that going to change her for the worse? Will she gain more power? Will she become in charge while she's in there? Or will she come out looking completely different and will end up being an antagonist in a future title? We just don't know that yet. In terms of Kravchenko though, this is where things get a bit spicy. So maybe Weaver being in prison does explain why Weaver wasn't present in the Black Ops 2 campaign. Unless Zombie is going in its own direction with its own canon that ignores Black Ops 2, then right now it's safe to assume that Kravchenko somehow survived. We know Peck did at least. Kravchenko somehow survived and ended up over in the Middle East. There is a lot of dialogue that I did manage to find over in a game of Forsaken, which confirms that Afghanistan is being hinted at, and maybe that's a callback to the fact that that's where Kravchenko ends up in the beginning of Black Ops 2, or it's a bit of a nod to the fact that was the old canon, but is going to be ignored for the future of this Dark Aether storyline. But regardless, right, if Black Ops 2 is still being kept canon here for zombies at least, we do know that both Hudson and Kravchenko die about a year after the events of this map regardless. Now it's definitely possible that with Zykov now in the containment sphere, the director or some other higher power in Requiem or some other group entirely like the Illuminati, maybe they end up utilizing the sphere itself, you know, extracting some energy or doing experiments with it, which could inevitably lead to the release of, unfortunately, the older beings, which could be even worse than the Forsaken, even though they were defeated by him. Maybe these older beings will come out, you know, better than ever, stronger than ever, and it'll be a mistake on Eddie's end that will then lead to him kind of realigning himself with the people that he imprisoned. That would be a cool plot point that we could see in Treyarch's next game, but a lot is still unclear with what's going to happen with that containment sphere. Now, another really interesting piece of info that we get through a live radio on this map is when the Forsaken speaks to us, Strike Team, explaining his motivations as he somewhat admires us as soldiers, and that was a bit weird, right? At the end of his monologue, he does say, and I quote, "As the old Dark Aether saying goes, you are all out of rabbits. Do we know what this means?" So that explains they really have no way to escape this scenario, right? But this is shockingly interesting as this is a direct quote from Ultimus Richtofen in Untoten. Whoa. When asked if he has a rabbit of betrayal waiting to pull out of his hat at the last minute, he states that he is all out of rabbits. The implication here is that even potentially after an unknown period of time has passed, some of his final words of Ultimus Richtofen have been ingrained in the culture of this strange realm. So that's just powerful to know that a quote from the old multiverse, right, or a quote from a character that no longer exists, is still somehow felt in the presence of this new being, which is the end-all say-all of the Dark Aether. And yeah, we defeated him, of course, but he was the being that somehow said something that another very powerful character used to say in a now collapsed multiverse. I mean, that's just wild to me, and I'm curious if once we get some dialogue from Eddie himself in a future game, will he have any recollection of what other Richtofens used to do back when he was a child? But lastly, we do have quite a bit of setup for Call of Duty Vanguard zombies, right? Something that I'm going to go in more depth with in an upcoming video, but one of the most obvious points for Vanguard is an intel between Jaeger and Kravchenko. So knowing the Forsaken will soon be at their door, Kravchenko wishes to speak to Jaeger about the exploits of his uncle, which was a Nazi soldier from World War II. And allegedly during World War II, the Nazi general encountered a similar dark entity. Kravchenko begins to speak his name, which is Cortif, hope I said that right, but is cut off by Jaeger, who doesn't wish to speak about the subject anymore, but claims to know very little regardless. It is almost a certainty that the uncle of Jaeger will be showing up in Vanguard Zombies. Another obvious tie-in for Vanguard is Zealot Sparamos, hope I said that right, and he is mentioned to be the creator of the Chrysalax wonder weapon here in the map, and he seems to be an entity who worshipped the old beings who no longer exist because of the Forsaken, and he created the Chrysalax to kill the Forsaken as he believes that it may bring them all back. As the Forsaken have consumed them whole, it is possible that Sparagamos and the old ones will appear not only in Vanguard, but in Treyarch's next game as well, as Vanguard may set up their characters from scratch before they are brought back in full form, so we care about the characters first before their next Call of Duty in 2023. Sparagamos has already name-dropped many places and entities of the pre-Forsaken Dark Aether, such as the Badlands of Disparax, the Ocean of Zephoria, Norticus. I probably mispronounced all of this, and I apologize, but I'll put some images on screen so you guys can see. These could be locations that we may see in Vanguard, whether they're maps, whether they're a part of Easter eggs, whether they play some influence, right? We also know about a being called Invictor. We aren't even in Vanguard, and Treyarch is already talking about world building for the Dark Aether, and we also don't have a reason to believe that all the Elder Gods that used to be in the Dark Aether were inherently evil. I'm sure some of them were worse than others, but still nothing in comparison to what the Forsaken actually ended up becoming. He devoured all of them whole, took control of the entire Dark Aether, took everybody's disciples, all of their minions, the entire zombie army, and laid down the groundwork for the story that we have in Black Ops Cold War. Since the Forsaken was able to grant us with perks and powers power-ups here in Cold War. I'm sure that's exactly how they're going to explain perks and power-ups within Call of Duty Vanguard. As you guys have probably noticed, plenty of artifacts, pieces of intel have been discovered recently, which definitely do strike a shocking resemblance to the occult-like story we're going to be getting in Vanguard Zombies, as already confirmed by Treyarch themselves. So I do think we're going to have a bit of a different experience in terms of gameplay and story, but there is a lot of world building, like I said, that's going to be established in Vanguard that will set down the groundwork for more future zombie stories to come. Now that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave all your thoughts down below in the comments section. What a massive video this has been, but it's a video I've been working on for the last couple of days. I had so much I wanted to get through, but let me know all your thoughts on Forsaken as a whole, the side quest, the main Easter egg, the boss fight, the heavy story ramifications from the ending cutscene. And all in all, right, what do you guys think about the world building this map has set up? I mean, this has likely set up many future Zombies iterations that we have no idea about just yet, which could stem across the next 5 to 10 years. Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everyone.